A warm welcome to all of you for this workshop, for this conversation that we will have on our topic, which has the title Freedom of Choice Under Threat. That's the general title. And in this workshop, we want to discuss how we can support people with special needs, their relatives, their families, and co-workers to stand up for people with special needs so that they can voice their own concerns, that they can express how they want to live their life, to engage in work and in family life and in social life. And we have Bernard Held here to introduce this theme and to speak about ECCE for about half an hour. Then we can make a short introduction that everyone shortly tells who he is and where he comes from and maybe what questions that he or she brings with, and then we can enter into the conversation. After that, we have to decide for a 5-minute contribution to the plenum that I will bring then to the plenum, and that we can show the work that we have done so that in the plenum we can continue with conversation and questions about this theme. All right? Thank you.
Viewpoint. These were the viewpoints we already had from the beginning. Participate in society to their individual potential. Quite normal, you would say. Live an individually chosen lifestyle in a surrounding that enables and supports personal development. Well, that's a mouthful of words, but it is really a task. And then again, living conditions, education and therapy suited to their individual potential. Then, in 2006, United Nations published the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, very well known in the European scene as United Nations Convention. Persons with and without disabilities finding with each other their own paths in inclusive society. An inclusive society is a society where everyone is included. It starts with inclusive education. We have good schools, we have schools, but mostly only for persons with a disability or children without a disability. So they don't know each other, they can't meet each other, they can't play with each other. So the children without a disability can't get accustomed to persons with a disability. And then you can see that it is a culture change. Inclusion, having persons with a disability as a part of society and not excluded in institutions, how good those institutions are. They are certainly in Western Europe. They take care in a very good way. So nothing against it, but it's not included. And to have them included, it's a culture change. We have to think in a different way. Our culture is a culture of how can I gain as much money? We heard it from the lady who gave the lecture about education. Schools are for how can I learn as much to have a job. But you have to learn as well other things. You have to learn your respect for each other. Tolerance, we heard it, and all that kind of social properties you must have. And that requires perseverance and patience. Persons with a disability are free to make their own choices, are to be respected for who they are, equal opportunities, and treated equally by the law. But they have the same rights to be included in society as anybody else. And we have the plicht, the duty, thank you. We have the duty to give them accessible information about the things that will help them. And then in their way of understanding, not in my way of understanding. In curative education and social therapy, from 1924 it's recognized that education, working or living are beneficial to all individuals involved and to society as a whole. All human beings have the right to contribute to society through work, and persons with special needs are no exception. And giving and receiving care, support, guidance is part of everyday life. This is inclusion. 92 years ago, published, dealt with all kinds of persons and spread it out in Europe, not only in United States, America, South America, Australia. It was described by Rudolf Steiner, who died in 1925, so 1 year later. We are very glad that he could learn us this, but at that time, look at society at that time. You could not have a person with a learning disability in society in the same way persons were in society. They had it difficult sowieso, anyhow. It was difficult for most persons, and persons with a learning disability, they were locked up at that time. That they had good food, and they had a shelter above their head, and that was enough. So,
yes, I think this can be the main focus of our conversation here. How can we develop a strategy in ECCE together with other organizations to support this change that we have now been describing as a general change in the society in general?
And we as well have to look for a way of speaking, of expressing that the man in the street understands what we want and that he's touched by it, or she, the woman in the street, that she's touched by it. Because in the streets, in the neighborhoods, among the persons, among the people, their inclusion has to be done. And we do it probably too much in ivory towers, and here in the big buildings we see outside, in the European Commission buildings and in the governments in all member states. And that's okay, because laws are made there, but it must be done. Yeah. Okay, you understand that, of course.
Manfred, do you have the experience that it's difficult to reach the parents? Or how do you in Germany?
Yeah, our focus in Germany is to support the people with disabilities to become self-advocacies, yeah, more and more, not the parents, because the parents, they more and more have their own topics, themes and problems, and there are even fewer parents who take initiative, could take initiatives. It's a problem on the level of the institutes, and it's also a problem on the level of the parent organization in Germany. But we try to support people with disabilities in our organizations, to like the initiative Living in Encounter, to go out into the society and to bring their aims, their needs into the public.
Yes.
We have today a big demonstration in Berlin because of a new legislative initiative in Germany, and there is, for our association, a woman with mental handicaps is speaking on the platform there to thousands of people, and we helped her and to do this. So I think this is the way when they take their own speech to bring a little bit change into society.
And how is that in Great Britain? Do you see now signs that society itself recognizes this and sees the need for change? Is there a kind of a civil answer to this problem that you described?
I think there are many, but the thing is that we haven't got bad enough. It hasn't become bad enough. And of course the answer is fight and flight. The answer is you keep the migrants out. The answer is that you just don't recognize the signs. And you see the answer in the prisons. You know, if everything becomes a business and social care becomes a business that has little income but a lot of expenditure, then you say, well, you're going to cut the expenditure because you don't get a lot out of it. But then, of course, you look now at our prisons, and there's 80% of people in prison who are learning disabled or with mental health problems. And they shouldn't be there. And it's much more expensive to send somebody to prison than to send them to our organization. And I keep trying to tell social workers, but they say that's none of our business because the prison is in the next county. We don't pay for it. So yes, I think to a certain extent, England, because of its constitution, because of the way that people are, they're roundabout people. They're not traffic light people. They will, they really will show the worst of it. And you see it already in little children. And it's heartrending that it's the children that are going to have to show us that how much we are failing. And what was said this morning, it really touched me, even to hear that from someone like that who speaks from the European Union, that we need to start with education. And that's education of all of us. The older they are, the more we have to learn. Yeah.
That's true as well.
And very often it's too much aimed at professionals who know the language, who know the circumstances. But I think it's very important to do that more for parents, because we need the parent associations, we need parents. They are, what is the correct word? They're not interested. Professionals, they're of course interested, they're paid and so on. Parents are not. So it's very good to have the voice of the parents in ECC, in society and so on.
When Building Bridges is a project of ECC, and next year when we are 25 years celebration, our anniversary in Switzerland, we do that. We have a symposium which will be called Building Bridges, and then we are trying to connect parents' organizations in different countries to each other, so they might learn from each other.
If we would give the opportunity for parents to learn from each other, that we don't have a trainer for trainers in our training for co-workers, but that we have this exchange among parents. How can we connect their experiences and also with the people themselves? If you have good examples of how someone could stand up and voice her or his own concerns on a platform like in the Berlin demonstration, this is a very good example, and you can show that there is a support behind. People are not left on their own, but we support it. Maybe we can exchange on how ECCE can learn from these kinds of experiences and implement them also, that we offer support to the different countries.
I think that's a good idea to support the parents, because when I think back 30 years or 40 years ago in Germany, there were some well-educated parents and they took the initiatives. There were no services, no schools and so on. They took the initiatives to build them, to bring them up. And now these services are there, and now just normal parents, and they have their problems with their children, and they now need our support from the parent organizations.
The problem we are focusing at is not only a problem between organizations and parents, but it's a societal problem. What you told, that's true. ECC is working behind the scenes, and a lot of persons don't know what we do, and so it's kind of foggy situation. But that's not only here.
I think for Britain it's very important that you know, this work in ECCE for me is a way forward, so that we can replace what was the EU, which is changing. It's having to change, and to find a new cultural, truly cultural identity, because the greater the differentiation, the more different the language and the culture, the more potential there is for cultural development, and for learning, and for loving, and for tolerance. And so we need to celebrate our differences, so that we can really culturally appreciate and love each other. And I think for me this work, and that's why I'm here today, is because of Brexit. Had there been no Brexit, I would not have been here today. Yes, because I really feel that this associating and this collaborating in a cultural way is infinitely more important now than it was even a year ago. And I think our people with learning disabilities, they are not only our teachers, and human need always lies behind community. There would be no community without human need. If I did not need you, I would not be sitting here with you. And so that goes both ways. So human need is what brings us together, and it's human need that will overcome all that will make us separate. And what makes us separate is huge. The forces of crumbling, of falling away, of losing values, losing social forms, is incredibly strong. But the human need is there, and I'm very much working at that.
So it's now 5 to 5, and we have to come to a conclusion to bring in the plenum. Would that be a suggestion that I summarize the conversation that we have had, that we have experiences that people with special need want to be part of society, and their parents, as well as our organizations, want to support this, and that by supporting them, so they can voice their needs, their questions, their will to integrate, we actually bring something in society that is also something that at the moment society really needs. To bring humanity, what this morning was described as this human dignity, that this can be a common aim. Is that a way to summarize what we have talked about? And maybe we have a few moments left. Can we describe what then at the moment should change? If we think of Europe, what hindrances do we see in the way Europe at the moment is organizing the social sphere in which we work? What might be hindrances, so that in the plenum we can maybe point out one or two things, not as a criticism, but as something to be aware of, that we want to work on. For instance, what I see is that a lot of these discussions about how to organize the care are brought to an economical point of view, and that the discussion then starts about what can we afford, how much can we spend, can we organize, yes or no, because of the money, this and that. That's one of the issues that might be important. Another issue that I think is when we speak about the efficient way of working, that there is a growing tendency to standardization and to limit the choices, like Michaela Glöckler this morning or this afternoon said, that what is freedom worth if the choices, the available alternatives are limited because of regulations? So maybe we can exchange there a little bit what we see as a hindrance in what we aim for.
What I see is that money and standards, personal standard, is more important than human dignity.
Thank you very much for all your contributions. For me, the first time to have a conversation like this with two video cameras pointing towards me, so it's a bit uncomfortable. But I'm very grateful for what we could bring together, and I'll try my best to bring it on the plenum so that we can maybe exchange further there.